Madam President. In the European Parliament in Strasbourg recently, I met a very clever man from Nigeria called Thompson Ayodele, and he talked me through a number of statistics on foreign aid, and the figures were pitilessly clear. He showed that international assistance was not useless. It was actively harmful. If you compared countries in receipt of it with countries not in receipt of it over the same period, the countries not in receipt grew faster, were more democratic, developed more impressively. And for the obvious reason. Foreign aid breaks the link between taxation, representation and expenditure. It allows governments to remain in office without the support of their populations. There are lots of things we could be doing to help developing countries. We could open our markets, we could abolish the common agricultural policy, we could encourage their exporters to sell. But the one thing that is absolutely not going to help is giving this kind of assistance, especially when we don't have the money. This is the crazy thing. We're borrowing money we don't have in order to give it to countries whose situation will thereby be worsened, all in order to make ourselves feel virtuous. Mr. President, I met a fascinating MP from Uganda last month, and I said to her, what's the effect of all the EU aid that you get? Does it help? And she said, it's not useless. It's actively harmful. And she then gave me some statistics comparing countries in receipt of overseas aid and countries not, and she showed the differential growth rates. The ones that don't receive aid do better, and the same was true of debt remission. The countries that didn't have debt remission tended not to be as indebted as the ones that had benefited and immediately indebted themselves again. So I said, well, in that case, what can we do for you? And she said, well, if you want to give aid, please don't give it to governments. Just announce that there will be a project, say, to build highways, take tenders from local companies, and then you will leave behind at the end not only the highway, but a company that knows how to gain a contract honestly rather than through bribery. But she said, if you really want to help, the way you can do it most effectively wouldn't cost you a penny. It's to withdraw your tariffs against our exports, above all our agrarian exports. So here's a way that we could raise the quality of living for European consumers at the same time as helping some of the poorest people in the world, simply by scrapping the common agricultural policy. President, the European Union's common agricultural policy is unmatched in its wastefulness, in its corruption, in its Byzantine bureaucracy, in its selfishness, in its hypocrisy and in its immorality. At the end of the 1950s, the Argentinian ambassador to the EU was the appointed spokesman of the developing countries, and he said, look, if you have to subsidise your farmers, we understand that. It's keeping out our products. We don't like it, but we understand that. But please do not also give us the double blow of then dumping your surpluses on our markets. The EU didn't listen then, and it hasn't listened since. The last World Trade talks were given the optimistic title Everything But Arms. Of course, they quickly descended into Everything But Farms, because the EU is determined to retain this protected and subsidised position for this one niche of its sector. Infer from what's happened. The common agricultural policy has existed since 1960. This is what the EU has been doing for longest. If this is what we've come up with, the ecological calamity, the poverty, the inflationary consequences of higher food prices, what are we thinking of that we want to give these same institutions additional powers?